continuing where I left off. The cause of suffering here again will be a bride foreign to Teucrians, a marriage made with a stranger. Never shrink from blows. Boldly, more boldly, where your luck allows. Go forward, face them. A first way to safety will open where you reckon on its least from a Greek city. These were the sentences in which the Sibyl of Cumae from her shrine sang out her riddles, echoing in the cave, dark saying muffling truths, the way Apollo pulled her up raging or else whipped her on, digging the spurs beneath her breast. As soon as her fit ceased, her wild voice quieted, the great soldier Aeneid began to speak. No novel kinds of hardship, no surprises loom ahead, sister. I foresaw them all, went through them in my mind. One thing I pray for, since it is here they say one finds the gate of the king of the underworld, the shadowy marsh that wells from Acheron. May I have leave to go to my dear father's side and see him. Teach me the path, show me the entrance way. Through fires and with 1,000 spears behind, I brought him on these shoulders, rescued him amid our enemies. He shared my voyage, bore all the seas with me, hard nights and days of menace from the sea and sky beyond, the strength and lots of age, frail though he was, indeed. He prayed this very prayer. He told me that I should come to you and beg it humbly. Piteous son and father, gracious lady, all this is in your power. Hecate gave you authority to have and hold Avernus wood. If Orpheus could call his wife's shade up, relying on the strings that sang loud on his Thracian lyre. If Pollux redeemed his brother, taking his turn at death, so often passing back and forth, why name the heroes, Theseus and Hercules? By birth I too descend from Jove on high. While in these terms he prayed and pressed the altar, breaking in, the Sibyl said, offspring of gods by blood, Trojan Anchises' son, the way downward is easy from Avernus. Black this door stands open night and day, but to retrace your steps to heaven's air, there is the trouble, there is the toil. A few whom a benign Jupiter has loved, or whom fiery heroism has borne to heaven. Sons of gods could do it, all midway our forest. Then Cocytus thick and black winds through the gloom. But if you feel such love and such desire to cross the Stygian water twice, to view the night of Tartarus twice, if this mad effort's to your liking, then consider what you must accomplish first. A tree's deep shade conceals a bough whose leaves and pliant twigs are all of gold, a thing sacred to Juno of the lower world. The whole grove shelters it. The thickest shade in dusky valley shuts it in, and yet no one may enter hidden depths below the earth unless he picks this bough, the tree's fruit with its foliage of gold. Proserpina decreed this bough, as due her, should be given into her own fair hands. When torn away, in place of it a second grows up without fail, all gold as well, flowering with metallic leaves again. So lift your eyes and search, and once you'll find it, put away the bow. It will come willingly, easily, if you are called by fate. If not, with all your strength, you cannot conquer it, cannot lop it off with a sword's edge. A further thing is this, your friend's dead body, but you don't know, lies out there unburied, polluting all your fleet with death, while you are lingering, waiting on my counsel here at my door. First, give the man his rest, entomb him, lead black beasts to sacrifice, begin with these amends. Then, in due course, you will see the Stygian forest rise before you, regions not for the living. She fell silent, closing her lips, with downcast face, and eyes, Aeneas turned from the cavern to the shore, dark matters on his mind. Steadfast, Aeneas walked it beside him with deliberate pace and equal anxieties. The two exchanged in shifting conversation many guesses as to that friend, now dead, now to be buried, so the prophetess had said. Then suddenly, as they came down to the dry beach, they saw Maecenas robbed of life by early death. Their own Maecenas, a son of Iolaus, never surpassed at rousing fighting men with brazen trumpet, setting Mount Mars afire. Once he had been great Hector's adjutant, going forward at Hector's side in battle, brilliant with trumpet, with spear as well. After Achilles took the life of Hector, this gallant soldier joined Dardanus in allegiance to no lesser cause. That day, by chance, as he blew notes on a hollow shell, making the sea sing back in his wild folly, he dared the gods to rival him. Then Triton, envious if this can be delivered, caught him and put him under in the surf, amid the rocks offshore. All who were there clamored around the body in lament. Aeneas, the good captain most of all. In haste then, even as they wept, they turned to carry out the orders of the Sibyl, racing to pile up logs for the altar Peri, and built it sky high into the virgin forest. Thicket of wild things went to the men, and down the pitch pines came, the biton ilex rang with axe blows, ash and oak were split with wedges, mighty rowans were trundled down the slopes. Aeneas himself went first in all this labor, cheering his fellows on with implements like theirs in hand. But grimly in his heart he wondered, studying the unmeasured forest, and fell to prayer. If only the golden bough might shine for us in such a wilderness, as all the prophetess foretold was true, Maecenas in your case only too true. The words were barely uttered when two doves, in casual flight out of the upper air, came down before the man's eyes to alight on the green grass, and the great hero knew these birds to be his mothers. Joyously he prayed, "Oh, be my guides if there's a way. Wing on into that woodland where the bow, the priceless bow, shadows the fertile ground. My divine mother, do not fail your son in a baffling time." Then he stood still to see what signs the doves might give, or where their flight might lead him. And they fed and they flew on, each time as far as one who came behind could keep in view. Then when they reached the gorge of sulphurous Avernus, first borne upward through the lucent air, they glided down to their desired rest. The two-hued tree, where glitter of gold filtered between green boughs, like mistletoe that in the woods in winter thrives with yellowish berries and new leaves, a parasite on the trunk it twines around. So bright amid the dark green ilex shone, the golden leafage rustling in light wind, Aeneas at last once briskly took hold of it, and though it clung, greedily broke it off, then carried it to Sibyl's cave. Meanwhile, the Teucrians on the shore wept for Maecenas, doing for thankless dust the final hours. First, they built up a giant Peri, enriched with pitch pine and split oak, with somber boughs, alongside the dark cypress in front. On top they made a blazon of bright arms. One group set water boiling over flames. They washed the cold corpse and anointed it, groaning loud, and laid it out when morn, on a low couch, with purple robes thrown over it, a hero shrouding. Bearers then took up as their sad duty the great bier. With eyes averted in their father's ancient way, they held the torch below. Heaped it offerings, blazed up and burned it, food, incense, oil, and bowls. And when the flame died and the coils fell in, they gave a bath of wine to the pyre's remnant, dirty ash. Then picking out the bones, Cornus enclosed them in an urn. The same priest with pure water went 3 times around the company, asperging them with cleansing drops from a ripe olive sprig, and spoke the final words. Faithfully then, Aeneas heaped a great tomb over the dead, placing his arms, his oar, his trumpet there beneath a promontory, named for him, Mycenium now and always, age to age. All this accomplished, with no more ado, he carried out the orders of the Sibyl. The cavern was profound, wide-mouthed, and huge, rough underfoot, defended by dark pool and gloomy forest. Overheard, flying things could never safely take their way. Such deathly exhalations rose from the black gorge into the dome of heaven. The priestess here placed 4 black bullocks, wet their brows with wine, plucked bristles from between the horns and laid them at her first offerings on the holy fire, calling aloud to Hecate, supreme in heaven, and Erebus. Other drew knives across beneath and caught warm blood in bowls. Aeneas by the sword's edge offered up to night the mother of the Eumenides, and her great sister Earth, a black fleeced lamb, a sterile cow to thee, Proserpina. Then for the Stygian king he lit at night new altars where he placed over the flames entire carcasses of bulls, and poured rich oil on blazing viscera. Only see, just at the light's edge, just before sunrise, earth rumbled underfoot, forested ridges broke into movement, and far howls of dogs were heard across the twilight as the goddess nearer and nearer came. Away, away, the Sibyl cried, all those unblessed, away, depart from all the grove. But you, Aeneas, enter the path here and unsheath your sword. There's need of gall and resolution now. She flung herself wildly into the cave mouth, leading, and he strode boldly at her heels. Gods who rule the ghost, all silent shades, and chaos and inferno fiery stream, and regions of white night without a sound. May it be right to tell what I've heard, may it be right and fitting by your will, that I describe the deep world in sunken darkness under the earth. Now dim to one another, in desolate night, they walked on through the gloom, through Death's home all void and empty realms, as one goes through a wood by a faint moon, treacherous light, when Jupiter veils the sky and black night bolts the colors of the world. Before the entrance in the jaws of Orcus, grief and avenging cares have made their beds, and pale diseases and sad age are there, and dread and hunger that sways men to crime, and sordid want, in shapes to affright the eyes, and death and toil, and death's own brother, sleep, and the mind's evil joys. On the door still, death-bringing war, and iron cubicles of the Eumenides, and raving discord, vipers hair-bound up in gory bands. In the courtyard, a shadowy giant elm spread ancient boughs. Her ancient arms were dreams, false dreams, the old tale goes. Beneath each leaf cling and are numberless. There too, about the doorway, forms of monster crowds, centaurs, twi-formed Silas, 100-armed Barius, and the Lernaean Hydra, hissing horribly, and the Chimera breathing dangerous flames, and Gorgons and harpies, huge Gerygond, triple-bodied ghost. Here, swept by sudden fear, drawing his sword, Aeneas stood on guard with naked edge against them as they came. If his companion, knowing the truth, had not admonished him how faint these lives were, empty images hovering bodiless, he had attacked and cut his way through phantoms' empty air. The path goes on from that place to the waves of Tartarus Archeron, thick with mud, a whirlpool out of a vast abyss, boils up and belches all the silt it carries into Cassatis. Here the ferryman, a figure of fright, keeper of waters and streams, is Charon, foul and terrible. His head, beard, grown wild and hoar, his staring eyes all flame, his sordid cloak hung from a shoulder knot. Alone he poles his craft and trims the sails, and his rusty hull ferries the dead. Old now, but old age in the gods is green. Here a whole crowd came streaming to the banks, mothers and men, the forms of all life spent, of heroes great in valor, boys and girls, unmarried, Young sons laid on the prairie before their parents' eyes, as many souls as leaves they yield their hold on boughs and fall, through forest in the early frost of autumn, or as migrating birds from the open sea, that darken heaven when the cold season comes and drives them overseas to sunlit lands. There all stood begging to be first across, and reached out longing hands to the far shore. But the grim boatmen now took these aboard, now those waving the rest back from the strand. In wonder at this, and touched by the commotion, Aeneid said, "Tell me, sister, what this means. The crowd at the stream, where are the souls bound? How are they tested, so that these turn back, while those take oars to cross the dead black water?" Briefly, the ancient priestess answered him, "Cocytus is the deep pool that you see, the swamp of Styx beyond, infernal power by which the gods take oath and fear to break it. All in the nearby crowd you notice here are pauper souls, the souls of the unburied. Charons the boatmen, those the water bears, are souls of buried men. He may not take them there, shore to dread, shore in the horse corns there, until their bones rest in the grave, or till they flutter and roam this side 100 years. They may have the passage then, and may return to cross the deeps they long for." Anchises' son had halted, pondering on so much, and stood in pity for the soul's hard lot. Among them he saw two sad ones of unhonored death, Leucoptosis and Lycian's fleet commander Orontes, who had sailed the windy sea from Troy together, till the southern gale had swamped and whirled them down, both ship and men. Of a sudden he saw his helmsman, Palinurus, going by, who but a few nights before, of course from Libya, as he watched the stars, he had pitched overboard astern, as soon as he made sure of the disconsolate one in all the gloom. Aeneid called, "Which god took you away from us and put you under Palinurus? Tell me, in this one prophecy Apollo, who had never played me falsely foretold you be unarmed at sea, and would arrive at the Ocean coast." I'm going to leave it off there. Thank you for watching, and subscribe if you like it, put it up. If you don't, put a thumbs down. And thank you for viewing. I'll see you in the next episode.